All right, so in my prep for this movie, watching a lot of documentaries on the making of the film The Force Awakens, right? And I'm struck by the amount of intention and respect that all the artists involved had for the project. Um, there's a lot of cool behind the scenes footage of everybody like digging through the old archives of the original trilogy and meticulously threading all of the yak hair for Chewbacca's costume and creating these hand puppets. And it's just really, really cool to see them have this reverence for the franchise. And then I think about like all the hatred that is cast onto the sequel trilogy right now. And it's pretty insane a lot of the times. And I keep thinking how much of this is a reflection of our society today. From my perspective, I'm not interested in critiques or video essays that can't find any good in a movie. And they just say, the whole thing is bad. Um, to me, that's not very interesting or helpful as we analyze film. And as an actor, always working with other performers, the first thing that we do when we critique a piece of art is ask, what worked and what didn't and why. So just something to think about. And let me just say that, it's important to keep in mind that a lot of these sensationalized headlines, like the rise of Skywalker is a dumpster fire or something like that, are not always, but oftentimes clickbait. And they're part of, it's a business. They're trying to bring in more viewers and get more clicks and likes to make more money for advertising. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we just step back for a bit and, take away the popular narrative, I think there are a lot of amazing things about, well, this movie especially. One of my favorite creators stresses finding the balance between the old and the new when revisiting franchises, right? It's tough. You don't want it to be too much old stuff because then it feels like a rehash. But you don't want to be too much new stuff because then it feels like it's not in the same universe. So, in my opinion, I think JJ handles this balance really well, with the exception of maybe one thing. Obviously, there are definite parallels between A New Hope and The Force Awakens, but these are really intentional. I mean, we have a protagonist, right, who's on a desert planet who finds a droid to go meet up with the rebels. We also have another Death Star type base, and that's the one that I'm like, I think we're starting to get a little bit tired of this plot thread here. So the new things that The Force Awakens brings to the table, because I feel like the new stuff is often overlooked because everybody's so focused on how similar it is to A New Hope. Hey, Cameron, good to see you. So the new stuff, number one, a stormtrooper that leaves the First Order. So that's a really cool idea. It's never been explored before in the theatrical movies. Number two, we have a continuation of Han Solo's story. So it's not a rehash of stuff he's done before. He's now transporting these monster beasts across the galaxy to some King Prana or whatever. He's reconnecting with Leia. He's trying to redeem his son or bring his son back to the good side. And then number three, Rey and Kylo's relationship is unlike any relationship we've seen before in Star Wars that's between a protagonist and an antagonist. In the prequel trilogy, we don't really get very deep antagonists at all, with the exception of maybe Palpatine. But the other villains are just killed off one by one. And then Return of the Jedi is really the only original trilogy movie where we see a intimate relationship between the two, because of course Luke didn't realize that Vader was his father until the very end of The Empire Strikes Back. But even still, that is a father-son dynamic, and clearly we're dealing with something very different between Rey and Kylo. And there's a bunch of little things too. Maz's castle, that's a lot of fun. The space gangs that are going after Han, even the scavenger lifestyle that Rey is living is really fun to explore. Ready? 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, it's hard to narrow down just a few items for an opening monologue when there's so much to say. But yeah, beat by beat, I'm going to try to walk us through basically Rey's hero's journey. Here we are a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Corey, I'm so glad you joined us for the sequel trilogy. I know that you kind of pieced out for the prequels, and I don't blame you, but I'm glad to have you back. All right. Star Wars Episode 7, scrolling up on my screen now, The Force Awakens. I gotta say, revisiting this movie too is really special because I didn't see this happening. I mean, I think it's cool to kind of put yourself back in that position that we all were in 2015 when this came out and just being like, wow, it's happening again. And Luke, Leia, and Han are back again. I bought tickets for opening night and it was a struggle because all the stuff was crashing. So I was in downtown LA, second row, and really enjoyed myself. Anyway, so one thing to talk about up front is the writing staff. Originally, a guy named Michael Arndt was hired to do a lot of the script. He's the guy who wrote Toy Story 3 and Little Miss Sunshine, but he was too slow. So Lucasfilm was like, you got to go. And then they brought in Lawrence Kasdan, who is the writer for Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So he came back, and him and JJ worked it out between the two of them. Oh, was my cat in the shot? Bluebell is running around doing stuff. Great opening shot. Opening shots are key to Star Wars. Agreed, Corey. It's a good pan down on Jakku, which doesn't really look much like a desert planet from far away. And we see the shadow of this Star Destroyer covering up the planet. Yeah, JJ uses these nice long shots that I think are really interesting. And right off the bat, we get actual actors in actual stormtrooper suits. Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? For those of you who were with me during the prequel watch-alongs, that was something I griped about a lot, because there is no reason that you shouldn't make a costume for a character to wear if you're a stormtrooper. All right, here's BB-8, our new droid, of course, basically designed to look like a beach ball. Hi, Kurt. Thanks for the like. I really appreciate all the likes, everybody. Oh, no.
Actual actors.
Oh, I hit the wrong thing.
Suits. Can you believe it, ladies and gentlemen?
All right, are we still good? I hit a button and it was bad. If we're not good, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. So here we are with Poe Dameron and Lor San Tekka. So Lor San Tekka is played by the great Max von Sydow, who just passed away not too long ago. His character is supposed to be one who kind of traveled through the galaxy after the Empire took over looking for Jedi artifacts, because the Empire, of course, was trying to suppress all that stuff. And that's how he met Luke and Leia, was while he was searching for that sort of stuff. Is that right? Yeah. So this would have been post Return of the Jedi. So they're trying to recover stuff. All right, so right off the bat, we have a big sense of urgency. You know, we had a quick moment with these two characters. Boom, we have the First Order troops landing on the village. And this village apparently was supposed to be kind of a religious type of village that like worshiped the Force or something. All right, we got a lot of cool movement here with these ships coming into frame. All these stormtroopers busting down this platform. Bamboo curtain. What does that mean, Corey? Oh, the curtain that they were in. Yeah. A lot of the set design, I mean, it's just so nice to have real sets built again. All these ships are real props. Thank you, JJ. For nothing, if you're not going to give him credit for anything else, y'all, you got to give him credit for going back to practical props and sets. All right, so quick note on BB-8 too. JJ basically came up with his design one day just doodling on a Post-it note. He was like, hey, I think this is kind of what I want. And so then like the designers took it and came up with this orange and white beach ball. The great Oscar Isaac. He does a fair amount here at the beginning, and then we really don't see him for a while. Rebecca says she's used this scene to explain the Force to high school students. Oh, yeah, when Kylo stops that blaster, I remember that having a huge impact on me in the theater when that first happened. All right, so he's putting the piece of the map into BB-8. Very similar to Leia and R2, of course, in A New Hope. I'm okay with that. Like I kind of said in the opening rant, the only parallel that I don't love is the Starkiller base one. Also, originally Poe was supposed to die pretty early in this movie. I think Oscar Isaac basically talked JJ into keeping him around. All right, so here's Finn, and apparently this is his buddy who reaches up and touches his helmet and leaves a nice streak of blood. We need. Corey says we need so much more Oscar in this. Yeah, I don't know if JJ decided too late in the game to give him more to do because originally he was going to die, but he's missing for a big chunk. And then the stuff he does in Last Jedi is just a little funky. But we're not talking about Last Jedi. We're talking about Kylo Ren's big entrance because here is his theme, those big brass horns that I love so very, very much. By the way, we're at 6:24 if you want to get right on target with me. Stay on target. 6:28. There was another little scene where Finn comes across a villager. Like he comes around the corner of like a hut and he's met there with a villager face to face. And he has a nice little moment where he decides to not kill the villager. And here is our villain. I love Kylo Ren's costume design. I cannot gush enough about it. And Adam Driver, he's one of the best. Great line there. Something far worse has happened to you. This dialogue, like it establishes that there's a history here. It does a lot in a nuanced way that George Lucas unfortunately couldn't quite grasp. Stu says this is the most confusing scene. Why is this a confusing scene? Corey says bamboo curtains was my way of saying we are committed, yes, to a very physical universe. Good point about BB-8 crashing through that curtain. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Oh, here's where Kylo catches the blast. I love a lot of the moments in this film where we see the power of the Force in new ways that really impact you. I mean, as the camera pans past that blaster bolt, you can feel the energy of that bolt just like shaking your insides. Stewart says, Finn holds his friend as he dies, then a couple hours later decides to be best friends with the guy who shot his trooper buddy. Well, I don't know. Did he see that Poe was the one who shot his trooper buddy? I love that little bit with Poe. It's just really hard to understand. You go first. I go first. He's a funny guy. Oh, yeah. 3D blaster shot, Peter says. There's a few moments that I don't know if I think when I saw this first, it was in 3D. There's Captain Phasma, ordered to kill all the villagers. See, I think with Finn here, to kind of go back to what you were saying, Stuart, I think Finn realizes, just the death that comes along with the life that he's living. I mean, you got to bear in mind he was chosen as a kid to do this, and this is his first battle, and he's certainly shocked about it and having a hard time processing it. So I think his number one priority is getting out of the First Order. I don't think he was really intending to bond with Poe Dameron. Yeah, Kylo's voice is fantastic. You really can't tell that it's Adam Driver unless to listen for it. He's just brilliant. Oh, I love this little puppet alien that comes out of the sand as BB's just rolling along. All right, and the Kylo returns to his Star Destroyer, having no luck getting the map. Okay, look at this shot. This is what I love when I talk about JJ and the way that he uses his camera, and whoever his DP is, David something, I think. So we start with the troopers and Poe coming down the ramp, and then we let them leave the frame, and we have Finn enter the frame. It's that sort of stuff that allows us to engage, and it's more entertaining than a lot of the stagnant shots that we got in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Here's Finn kind of panicking in Captain Phasma. I got to meet Gwendolyn Christie. So I was living in LA at the time when this film came out, and when the big premiere happened at the Chinese theater, I was like, I'm going to go down and try to see some celebrities. So I was on the sidewalk and I got to see as the limos came up and dropped off John Boyega and Mark Hamill and Steven Spielberg. And then I'll tell you my story here about Gwendolyn in a little bit after I address Ray's introduction. Mr. Heavy Breathing. Yeah, Finn does do some heavy breathing in that scene. He's trying to like do his best impression of Vader. Okay, so in this intro to Ray's character, we have a lot going on with no dialogue. We get to see her day-to-day routine and see her skills with, what's the word? Grappling? Repelling, and collecting junk on this old destroyer. Just little character moments here that reveal information about who she is. The drinking of the water, the staff. And then this bit is so cute with her going down this sand hill like a sled. These little things do a lot that people don't realize, but your brain realizes it. And her score, her theme that John Williams wrote here is pretty phenomenal. He was a big fan of Daisy Ridley. And he was like, when they continued to ask him if he would continue to compose for the rest of the sequel trilogy, he's like, as long as I get to keep writing music for Daisy Ridley. Oh, there's another 3D shot, Peter, when she throws her staff into the side. And we got a cool little speeder bike that she's on, some fun sound design that I think Ben Burt worked on this film. Corey, you might know the answer to that. I agree, Peter, that her theme is phenomenal. And look at this Star Destroyer and X-Wing remains in the sand. So apparently there was a battle here on Jakku years before. We're learning that this planet, is very lived in. There's a history here. This is all very interesting information. This set was all built on location. Oh, what's the name of that place? It's like Abu Dhabi or something. Yeah, Abu Dhabi in Africa. All these practical monsters carrying these pieces. And this is the very first scene that Daisy Ridley shot on set, was the scrubbing. This scene is beautiful. So this is a moment for us to see what she is afraid she's going to become. Again, no dialogue. Ray hasn't spoken a single word yet. And now we meet Unkar Plutt, and we'll hear her speak. Maybe? Oh, she might not actually say anything here either. Nope. And there's a dude in that alien costume with the thing on his back. And of course, Unkar Plutt is Simon Pegg from Star Trek. He's a buddy of JJ. Okay, so let's talk about her at walker that she lives in, right? We get to see the doll. We get to see some flowers. And most importantly, we get to see her marking off something, right? Revealing again that she's keeping track of something. Making her meal. This is other fun things that humanizes the character and allows us to connect to our main character. Thanks for the like, Corey. Keep in mind, JJ found new things to do with the little robot, a masked villain, a force power thing. This is so underappreciated. Yeah, I agree. Corey, that's a good point. JJ found new things to do with stuff that we're already familiar with. Here she is gazing at a starship speeding off, again informing us that she's longing for something better. She puts on this helmet. All of this stuff adds to who the character is. And there's the beautiful shot of the AT-AT, the AT-AT walker. I think the technical is AT-AT. Yeah, I agree. Corey, that's a good point. JJ found new things to do. I keep hitting that button on accident. Oh, that effect of Ray eating the meal, Corey, yeah. It's really cool to watch that little piece of bread just suddenly pop up. All right, now we're going to learn more about her. That's right. The first time she speaks, it's in a different language. So we're establishing, more of her skill set. She's on a planet where she's fending for herself. That's why she has the staff, because she's obviously run into a lot of problems here before. It makes sense that she knows how machines work because her whole job, her whole livelihood is taking apart and putting back together machines and stuff. All right, now we get to see her meet another character and how she relates to him. So this again informs us a lot about who she is and how she feels about other people. I mean, BB-8's essentially a pet, right? And the puppeteers for him are awesome. So they had at least 3 different versions of the BB-8 droid. One was a puppet, which is literally just kind of like a guy pushing it on a long extended pole and moving it back and forth, wiggling it. Then they had essentially like the remote control version. And then finally they had a prop. So like when there's shots of the people holding it and carrying it, it's a lightweight prop. This is a weird change to the Star Wars universe, though, that droid is a language that humans can speak. That was never a thing. I think I addressed that back in the original trilogy when Luke's in his X-Wing communicating with R2 on the screen. They changed that here, and I think even in Clone Wars they started dealing with that too. It just became easier for them to have an ability to communicate with the droids. However, you kind of lose your purpose for a droid like C-3PO, whose entire function is translating. Oh well. Sinking sand foreshadowing, William says. Yes, Peter, establishing her mechanical skills to the audience. And here we are with Poe Dameron. Two very talented actors here. The lighting in this scene too is just really cool, coming from above and creating these shadows on Poe's face. And then the sound design that they changed for the Force here, they didn't change, they just added this intense reverb sort of quality. It just creates this ominous build. And then when Oscar, commits to this performance like he does, it's so effective. Look at the sweat on that guy's face. Beautiful man. And here's General Hux. I don't think he was meant to be a likable character, that General Hux, but I'll talk more about him later. I was going to tell you about the Gwendolyn Christie story. So just real quick, you weren't supposed to stand still at this certain section leading into the Chinese theater at the premiere. So I just started to pace back and forth and try to see if I could catch celebrities, and it totally worked, because as soon as I saw Gwendolyn Christie walk by, I was like, I'm going to time this perfectly, put out my little paper for her to sign. Sure enough, she did it real quick, and she is tall. I love that SNL sketch, Peter. Matt from Starkiller Base, the technician. Oh, Caleb is wondering where we're at, so I'll give you a timestamp. This is 18 minutes and 49 seconds, Caleb. 1851. Unkar Plutt has realized that the droid is worth something. And Unkar Plutt is a combination of a lot of things. He was in the suit in Abu Dhabi, but the mask with the motor in it or whatever was going to be way too hot for him. I mean, it's 120 degrees out there, right? So he just used what they call a cover throw-over mask instead, and then digitally composited it. Most of his face, I believe, is digital, and you can kind of see that. All right, so Finn comes in, grabs Poe by saying, oh, yeah, somebody wants you. The downside about Oscar Isaac being so good is that he kind of upstages John Boyega. I don't think John Boyega's performance is great in this film. I think by the time we get to Rise of Skywalker, he's pretty good. But a lot of his smile is the right thing to do. I think he's playing the joke a little bit too much. But, I mean, Oscar Isaac could act to a wall, and it would be interesting. So, and I remember watching this scene in the theater 4 years ago, or whatever, 5 years ago now, and thinking this is classic Star Wars. And that's what JJ's so good about, is capturing the essence of how the movies feel, the tone. But they get in the TIE fighter, they're feeling good about this, and what happens? Well, they make a ridiculous mistake. because of course the TIE fighter is still attached to the wall. That just struck me as like, this is totally something that would happen to Han Solo. Like, while how many times in Empire Strikes Back is Han like this close to escaping, but one thing that he forgot is like going wrong. I just love this. And the troopers are like, okay, we got a chance to take him down. Real dudes in real suits. Mouse droids. Look at the camera work here. I mean, it's just really visually entertaining. Caleb, that could have been JJ's intentions. What were you referring to there? Yeah, I like that, Corey. As Finn sheds his trooper shell when he's down on the planet surface of Jakku. This is a fun exchange of dialogue here in the TIE Fighter. Again, I don't think Poe is really interested in friendship at all at this point. I think he just wants to get out. But they do have a quickly developing camaraderie. I think that really starts when Poe gives him his name, right? I'm going to call you Finn. His whole life he's been a number. And of course they're having a great time blowing stuff up. It's just a lot of fun, man. This whole movie has this energy about it that we really missed during the prequel era. Caleb, John B. acting into the joke, being awkward. Yeah, maybe. It doesn't. I don't know. Just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean it doesn't work for other people. So good to see. The pacing of all this is just quick banter, clipping along. We're getting off to a really great start here. Okay, General Hux. So JJ, I wrote down stuff that he said about Hux. He wanted Hux to be played by a young actor. He wanted the character to have a sense of tragedy, and the fact that he appears to be too young to be in charge of a murderous group added to that. I think we just had mention of the Clone Army, which is like the only prequel tidbit in the whole movie. But Abrams also said that the character's name was created after he noticed an abandoned gravesite with the name Hux engraved on it. So he just pulled it off of a tombstone, which I thought was really funny. Poor Hux. Donald Gleason is another phenomenal actor. If you're not familiar with his work, I highly recommend the movie About Time. It's so good. If you're into like romance and stuff. All right, so Poe's like, yo, we're going back to Jakku. And Finn's like, why? I don't want to ever go back to Jakku. I want to get as far away as possible. 180 camera move inside the TIE cockpit. Absolutely, Corey. Thanks for pointing that one out. Yeah. That's another moment where the camera does a whole lot of work for us as it pans all the way around our two heroes in the TIE fighter. I love that there's like a little baby face of baby Finn on that screen. It is funny to see Donald Gleason in that role because it's very different than like the other movie that I was just telling you about Time. Here's the shot that we saw in the very first trailer ever, where Finn pops up from below the camera frame and starts looking around the desert. And all that sweat is real, folks. John talks a lot about the amount of running he had to do, and this is pretty early on, days one or two, I don't remember exactly. And this whole thing is a real prop that they had out there in the desert. He finds Poe's jacket. Oh, I haven't seen Black Mirror. I didn't even realize Gleason was in that one. Stewart's character, Stewart says, I'm assuming you're referring to Hux's character was absolutely butchered. He definitely became a laughingstock, especially in Last Jedi. That opening scene just still registers very oddly to me. Look at that explosion. Yeah, Hux, yeah. Yeah, your mom joke at the beginning of Last Jedi is like, okay. Here's John walking, and there he is shedding his stormtrooper armor. Piece by piece. He's becoming a new man. In that hot, hot sand. Oh, yeah. Hi, Parker. Nice to see you, my friend. There he is walking still. A lot of this walking reminds me of A New Hope when 3PO is out just kind of walking around aimlessly. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm looking at through some of these notes I had down because I'm not as familiar with the sequel trilogy, of course, as I am, of course, with the original trilogy. So I'm going to be looking down at stuff a lot more. Oh, there's the reference to the clone army. So of course we have this ongoing feud between Hux and Kylo. I just love his cloak. How there's like a texture to Kylo's costume, like a pattern. He's got that interesting pattern all over his outer cloak, and the chrome part of his mask is just really cool. John Walker, Christopher Walker's lesser-known brother. Hitch, I don't know what you're talking about there. His voice sounds okay. So this guy's a massive puppet. Like, look at how big that thing is. And there's like dudes. I love this too when Finn drinks it and about throws up. This set here is really cool. This Nema outpost set. All right, so here it's pretty well established that Rey knows how to fight, or at least knows how to bite, using her staff to do so, which is why I think it makes perfect sense that a weapon like a lightsaber would be easier for her to pick up. Also, we have a really good butt shot of that massive alien there, didn't we? Like, that was nice to have. Corey, my wife bought me Finn Poe's jacket. No, jacket so much because it's a story point. It's a relationship builder. Yeah, the jacket literally moves the plot, both transforming Finn from a trooper as well as IDing him to BB-8, which is what's happening right now. BB's realizing, hey, that's my master's jacket. And Rey, and making him meet Rey. Yeah, this is all part of moving the plot along. John Walken. Oh, I get what you're saying, Hitch. That is funny. And she just totally knocks him out. And then he gets shocked. Like, he really has had a bad day. I'm pretty sure that's something Finn says. Yeah, pretty messed up day, all right. Their chemistry is really good, of course. You see John and Daisy joking around all the time on set, and it really shows here on camera. I don't know, Caleb. Caleb's asking, was Kylo referencing Snoke because Snoke wanted a clone army and Hux convinced him not to? Could be. Could be. Corey said he's jumping out. Thanks for joining for a little bit, Corey. You should jump back in when you're done with dinner. Say hi to the kids. All right, so here's where Finn starts to lie. Because Rey assumes, oh, you're with the Resistance, huh? And I'm pretty sure Daisy Ridley was so close to breaking character in this moment. You can see her mouth kind of like want to twitch into a smile, but she recovers. Yeah, I'm torn about the whole Luke Skywalker thing. Like, Michael Arndt, the original screenwriter of the film, wanted to incorporate Luke earlier. But every time, according to him, every time he wrote Luke, Luke would take over every scene. It makes sense. It's Luke Skywalker. Look at this shot. Oh, it's beautiful. These characters running through this actual set. They ran a lot. Both these actors trained a lot too for this stuff, but they said it was really different running on sand. Excuse me. BB-8, hey, that guy stole my jacket. Rey says, I'm so mad. I see her as really bonding to this droid really quickly. And I'm torn about this hand holding thing. Like, it's funny, but it's also like, why would Finn be grabbing her hand so much? I don't know. I'm torn. I see good and bad things about that choice there. Look at all this beautiful scenery. But yeah, even these explosions, there's some awesome behind the scenes footage where you get to see like how close all these explosions are to these actors. Yeah, like right here. Oh, this is beautiful. And then you can see the Millennium Falcon just barely as they walk by. Oh, I'm already anticipating the reveal of the Millennium Falcon coming up. What about that ship? That one's garbage. We'll take the garbage. The garbage will do. And there she is, and there's the classic theme. See, this is the kind of energy that in the theaters and even now, it's just like, yes, JJ captured the feel. There's a magic to Star Wars that a lot of people don't understand, and I think he gets it. I don't think Ryan got it. That's my opinion. Remember, when this came out, it was universally loved. It still has a 90 something percent on Rotten Tomatoes if you're into that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. And here we are back in the gun chair? I don't know what this, I should know what this is called. But Finn's doing his thing. And I feel like I need to point out that the two of them escape together. Because a lot of people complain about Rey, never needing any help or anything. And they certainly would not have gotten out of this mess if it was just one of them. Because Finn is the one that shoots the last Star Destroyer down. Here's Unkar Plutt. What a terrible name, right? I mean, it's delightfully terrible, but Plutt, that's the Linoleum Falcon. They reconstructed this whole thing off of photographs and everything, too. There's a lot of fun stories about when people first walk onto the set of the Millennium Falcon. Look at this camera stuff. It's just so cool. But yeah, Gwendolyn Christie, for whatever reason, came on the set of the Millennium Falcon one day, probably just to see it because you're in a Star Wars movie, so you're going to take advantage of that. And she's just like blown away, like, I'm on the set of the Millennium Falcon. This is what I looked at as a kid. And then Harrison Ford walks on stage. And she's just like an emotional wreck. I love all this. The stuff that is familiar from episode 4. Again, this kind of goes back to finding that balance between the old and the new. We're in a familiar ship, but we're on a new planet, and we're flying through this graveyard. That's something that we never even thought about before. As a ship graveyard. This is a cool idea. I wonder what Unkar Plutt's plan was for the Millennium Falcon. Like, did he ever fly that thing? I can't imagine that grotesque character in the pilot seat of that thing. Corey says this trilogy photographs spaceships in ways they've never been photographed. JJ led this. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm gonna like that one. That's true. Hitch says, I just don't know how it's possible that the Millennium Falcon is just laying around without Solo's knowledge. Yeah, I'd have to go back and listen to the scene carefully when Solo does finally, because he says something about, I knew we should have checked the unknown regions again, because they overlooked it. Let's face it, though, Han is not always the best when it comes to paying attention to like details. He's my favorite character, but he's very flawed, and that's why he's interesting. New way to see a dogfight. This is a cool camera thing here. There's a name for it, but I'm not a DP, so I don't know what it is. When the camera suddenly goes whoosh. Corey, you might know the name of that shot. Here they are inside of a Star Destroyer. Flying this piece of garbage. A lot of interesting stuff going on. And Finn takes his shot. Good fun. And they leave Jakku. But they're going to be coming back. Or are they? Ray wants to come back. She wants to reject the call. For all of you Joseph Campbell fans out there, part of the hero's journey is a call to adventure, and she doesn't really want to do that. So this is more bonding scenes that we see between the two of them. Throughout the prequel commentaries, I was saying we don't really have a lot of bonding scenes between Anakin and Obi-Wan. And every scene we've had between these two characters is bringing them together, creating a bond. Here we get to exchange names. Neither of them have last names, of course. Stu asked, did I read Joseph Campbell? I have not read any of his books from front to back, no. This was a good 3D shot, the Star Destroyer. I remember that having a huge impact on me because I was sitting down in the left corner. But no, I've read some of Hero with a Thousand Faces. It's some good stuff. Pretty in-depth. I love this actor who delivers this news to Kylo Ren. He does a great job of exhibiting this, like, I don't want to tell my parents the truth sort of thing. And some people have a problem with Kylo's, like, temper tantrums. I like it. The idea that he's super unhinged and unprotected. He's a loose cannon, right? He's the type of guy that you don't want you to send your daughter to school with, sort of thing. William says that dogfight feels like the vintage Star Wars. Love the old tracking shooting technology. Absolutely. That same stuff that we saw Luke and Han dealing with at the end of the very first movie. What girl? Now remember too, nobody really knew anything about this movie when it came out. I mean, I'm sure there were some leaks online somewhere, but a majority of us didn't know who the main character was. Didn't know how much of Han, Luke, or Leia we were going to see. So learning all of this as we went was really fun for me because I avoid spoilers altogether. I had to tell my chief about it. Stu, that's funny. The Eileen. So yeah, John Boyega is a British actor as well. Well, his parents are from Nigeria, I guess, but I think he was born and raised in the UK. So he has a British accent. And they started shooting the film with him using his original. This is just so funny. See, okay, humor is another great thing for us to learn about characters because as human beings, we relate to humor. We use humor throughout our life to, connect with people. So a lot of the humor in this movie is really great too. You got a boyfriend? I think it's pretty clear, at least in this movie, that Finn starts to develop some feelings for our little scavenger friend. But yeah, for whatever reason, both John Boyega and JJ were like, you know what? Can we do an American accent? Because for some reason it's not working as well. I don't know if it's because all of his stuff is with Daisy and they both were using their original British accents or what the exact reason was. All right. Oh, I'm already getting goosebumps because I know what's coming up. Our characters think that it's the First Order. But for people like me who've seen this before, we know who it really is. It's good to be in this cockpit again too, man. William says BB-8 is a better actor than Boyega. Changed my mind. I wouldn't dare change your mind, William. Boyega gets a lot better. Oh, okay. You guys remember this moment from the first trailer, though? The Chewie we're home moment? So many emotions when that first came out, that first trailer. Here he is. Oh, love that line. So JJ dedicated a lot of time to that very first moment on set because he wanted it to be just right. He knew. I think he probably knew pretty early on that's how he was going to cut his trailer. Was to put that at the end of his first trailer. So to see Han back on the Falcon is pretty awesome. Yeah, Stu is mentioning the English accents being associated with the Empire. That was always a thing in the original trilogy. For whatever reason, George just wanted all of his Imperials to be Brits. But again, that's something that's changed in this movie as well. Okay, they're talking about the Falcon. Oh, I kind of missed some of that, Hitch. I wanted to track it a little bit better, but Han Solo, he's kind of sloppy about stuff. That line, "I used to be," that's something that Harrison Ford would actually say to people who would come up to him and be like, "Hey, you're Harrison Ford?" You'd be like, "I used to be." So him and JJ threw that in there because it fit Han Solo's character so much. Daniel Craig was a stormtrooper, yeah. I think he's the one in the interrogation scene. Oh, this makes me so happy to see Han Solo on the cockpit again. I know we only get him for one movie, but oh, it's so nice. For someone like me who thought this was never going to happen again, I was so happy to see this movie. Would I have done things differently? Probably. It's kind of hard to believe now that they didn't put the original three together on screen at the same time. But I'm happy. I've chosen to be happy with what I got because there is a lot of good here. And this scene in particular is one that's really fun because Han starts talking about Luke. And we hear that theme from the original movies. I knew Luke. Oh, you just think about all the things that they did in the first movies. So this freighter that Han is on right now is called the Aravana, apparently. I guess he's been using it a while to haul Rathtars. I believe these are one of the only aliens in the film that are 100% digital, which is probably one of the reasons why I don't really like the Rathtars very much. They kind of have like a Men in Black feel to me. By the way, Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew at this point was pretty weak. He had done something to his ankle or shin a couple years ago and couldn't really do any walking. So he's in all the sitting scenes with Han in the Falcon, but at this point, this is the new guy, Jonas. All right, so here's these gangs. Now, I might not like the Rathtars, but I am digging these two space gangs. This is the Guavian Death Gang. You're a dead man. This is a Scottish actor with that fantastic Scottish accent. I'm not good at accents, so I shouldn't really even try. I love that Han is bad-mouthing the other gang. What he doesn't realize that they're working together to come back and get this money. I mean, those helmets that the Death Gang is wearing are just super dope. And then apparently the Kanja Club characters used to be slaves to the Hutts. So they rebelled against the Hutts, I guess. Mutinied, I don't know, left. And a lot of their costume and weapon design was kind of like a hodgepodge because they had to, in theory, build their own equipment. Lots of funny stuff here for Han. Harrison Ford's just killing it. Of course, Harrison Ford, had that big accident on the set here. I do want to point out another thing for Rey in this moment, though, because for all the people who complain that she's a Mary Sue or whatever, she makes a mistake here pushing these doors. thinking that she's going to trap the gangs. And what does she actually end up doing? Releasing the Kraken. They're very much like Krakens, right? The raid actors. The lighting down, all this lighting is really fun too. But yeah, so Han, pretty early on in the process, for those of you who didn't know, one of the doors on the Millennium Falcon literally fell on Harrison's leg and broke it. And they had to, Caleb, you're back, yay. Caleb, were you the one that left, or was it Corey? It was one of you guys with the C name. Corey, you might have always been here. I don't know. But yeah, so Harrison, they had to push back the entire shoot so he could recover. And then I think I found out too that JJ actually fractured a vertebrae. Yeah, JJ fractured a vertebrae in his back, but he didn't tell anybody about this for months because I think he was so stressed about Harrison Ford's injury that he didn't want to bother anybody else. I'm like, dude. See, this is tough when we have a digital, at least the lighting here kind of helps us buy it a little bit more. But obviously the Rathar is a big digital monster and Finn is a real life actor. It gets a little toughy. A little toughy? Gets a little tough. One thing else that Harrison stressed with the Millennium Falcon, he specifically requested, look at those tentacles, gross. He requested to like the set design guys, can you make sure that the toggles and switches actually work? Because it bugged me in the earlier movies when I couldn't flip stuff. So when Harrison Ford asks you to do something, I mean, you just kind of go along with it and do it, right? Chewie gets hit here at some point by one of these gang members. This was one thing that kind of bothered me, like Han enjoying the bowcaster. It's cool, it's funny, but you're telling me that in their 40-year relationship, he's never shot Chewie's bowcaster? Like, that's one thing that I'm like, come on. Friends share their firearms with people, right? I got one. He's back there. This bit is fun when Finn's like trying to bandage him up. Stu says, I'd be worried about Harrison too. I don't want to get pointed at. I never realized how much pointing he did until that was brought up online. And then, Finn pulls the remote from A New Hope. So we got the Rathtar that's like sucking on the cockpit. I love that. Come on, Han, get it together. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, like Adam Driver tried to incorporate a lot of Harrison Fordisms into his performance of The Rise of Skywalker. So there's a lot of cool shots of him doing the point, the Han Solo point, or there's like a Han Solo type shrug that he does at the very end of the movie when he's battling the Knights of Ren. Okay, so here we are on Starkiller Base the first time, which is actually inside of a planet, an ice planet called Ilum, I believe. And this was really cool, especially on the IMAX. We see Snoke, which of course now we know is just another clone. The thought is that like the cloning that Palpatine's loyalists were doing was not right, and that's why he looks so wrong. But when we first saw this, we didn't know any of that stuff. Ilum, that's the name of the planet. And I believe this planet shows up in Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken, in the episode where the younglings go and build their lightsabers, because there's a lot of kyber crystals on this planet. Make preparations. And this was the voiceover that was used in the trailer. There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? Yeah, it's your granddaughter, dude. Spoiler. Oh, Peter says I didn't realize this was a conference room until recently. Same, dude. For whatever reason, in the movie theater, I didn't see those little chairs around. Uh, and it's still kind of hard to see them. Planet the Jedi got their crystals. Yeah, absolutely, Caleb. Also, Caleb says it's also featured in Jedi Fallen Order. Ah, see, I'm not a gamer, so I love all this info about the games. Elam was mentioned in the OT movies. Is that right? I don't recall any moment that Elam is mentioned in the original trilogy. Bring her. Andy Serkis, man, I'll have to talk about him more later. He's fantastic. But yeah, we didn't realize that was a hologram, right, at the beginning. So it was just like, is this guy really that big? BB-8. See, yeah, BB-8 has a lot of good character moments in this movie too, and that kind of gets lost. The droids, well, I guess 3PO has a lot to do in Rise of Skywalker, and that's nice to see. But R2D2 really gets the shaft in this trilogy. Daisy really has such big teeth. When she smiles, it's just like, teeth. Move, ball. Here we get the Jarek chessboard. And what's funny is when they animated this, they decided to kind of pick up where the game was ended in A New Hope, which obviously doesn't really make sense because there were certainly other games played on that holo chessboard, but it's kind of just like a fun little tip of the hat, I guess. All right, so you got a map, Han? Let me see it, Han says. You're trying to find Luke. Luke used to be my best friend. He's the uncle of my child. Kelvin, what's up, buddy? So glad you could join, man. You want a timestamp? I haven't given one in a while. So let's see. We're at 52 minutes, 53 exactly. 53:03. Han's talking about the Jedi Temple and it being destroyed by one of his students. It's just so wild to be in the space and remember Han sitting in that chair when Obi-Wan was talking about the Force. And now he's saying, I didn't believe in it, but now I do. Mumbo jumbo. That was a word that apparently Harrison and Alec Guinness used to use when they were talking about George Lucas's scripts back on the original sets. The Force, the Jedi. It's all true. This is really, for those of us who have been fans for a long time, to hear Han Solo talking about the Force with the John Williams theme behind him, it's good. It's good stuff. All right. So now he's going to find a way to connect them with the Resistance. Because, of course, he can't go directly to Leia because, he doesn't want to deal with that. William, were the Falcons that are at Disney used in the movies? No. The Falcon that's there at Galaxy's Edge is a prop in and of itself. They made specifically for the park. I love that line from Rey. I haven't ever seen this much green in the whole galaxy. One of my big complaints about Phantom Menace was that we never saw Anakin struggle with his new environments. That is just one line that does a whole lot. You don't even need any more than that. So here's Maz's castle. A lot of that lake stuff was stuff shot in England. She steps out. She breathes in this air. Caleb, I have been reading your stuff about Fallen Order. That's really interesting because it does kind of help with the argument that the Emperor's been around and been doing stuff this whole time. Mr. Solo. Finn's a funny character. I'm glad, too, that by the end of this trilogy, Finn has decided to take a stand. He's no longer this manic. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by Harrison Ford's performance. Women always find out, always. See, and that says a lot about his character and, of course, his relationship with Leia. So this is another opportunity for Rey to jump on the call to action. Han is offering to offer her a position. The old curmudgeon. And I mean, speaking of Joseph Campbell, some more, just for you, Stuart. One of the steps in his hero's journey is finding a mentor. And Han is clearly stepping into that role here for Rey. And then Finn is really filling in the role of like friends and allies sort of thing. Helper. Helper is another archetype of the Campbell. I just am so distracted by Harrison. I'll start saying something and then I will just get captivated by his performance. All right, so as we're walking up to the castle, there's a ton of flags out here. I love this droid. There's a lot going on in this castle, folks, so I'm going to try to bust through it quickly. But you can see Boba Fett's mythosaur skull. There is Hondo Anaka insignia on one of these flags. Apparently the 501st have their insignia on it too. There's like 3 or 4, and I've only ever caught a couple. But Caleb, so yeah, Joseph Campbell was an author who basically wrote about how there's a common myth story across all cultures, and they follow a very similar structure. So in this castle, we got a lot of new aliens. And that's one thing that kind of bothered me, is that we don't get to see any classic aliens. There's Warwick Davis. So that guy with the long nose who was by that gambling table, that is Wicket the Ewok from Return of the Jedi. I don't know if we'll get to see him again, but right after Maz says, Han Solo, it's the first guy with the big snout, short little guy. Maz is fun. There's a lot of aliens in here I could talk about. So this big fat guy is supposed to be like a poacher of some kind. And this girl with him, his companion, I wrote her name down somewhere. Anyway, she's the one that's the spy, the First Order spy. There's a couple werewolf characters in here that were specifically drawn by. Okay, and then this GA droid is part of like the underground resistance droid network for Leia, and supposedly he's actually transmitting this message straight to C-3PO. Actually, okay, back to Starkiller Base, Elam, which apparently the Empire and the First Order has been using for a while. So yeah, Caleb, basically Joseph Campbell was a big inspiration for George Lucas in the very first Star Wars movie, and continues to kind of be inspiration for this movie, and to a certain extent the prequels. His biggest book was really The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Check it out. It's really interesting. All right, so now we get to see Kylo talking to his old grandpa. Did I talk over the whole Han Solo, Ben Solo, like Kylo being Han's son thing? I think I might have. I think that was earlier with Snoke. Oh, and there's the mask. See, JJ wanted the presence of Vader to still have an impact on this trilogy. Like, he talks about Kylo Ren's design and how he didn't want to attempt to recreate Vader in any way, because you can't. But he did want it to be inspired, and he wanted Kylo to be inspired by the horrific acts of Darth Vader. Somehow she got her hands on the burnt Vader mask. Stu, who got her hands on the burnt Vader mask? Maz? So, of course, Maz is portrayed by Lupita Nyong'o. I love the food in Star Wars. Every time there's food in Star Wars, I'm like, what are they eating? Lupita did motion capture for this character, so she's on set with 100 little dots on her face. Apparently she is force sensitive, but there's mention of Sith, so there's kind of a nod to the prequels. The lighting in this scene is interesting too, especially on Finn. The girl with the big poacher guy. Do you really think she got the mask? I think you're just making stuff up now, Stu. I love this part when Maz is like crawling all over the table. She's got a lot of cool lines. But yeah, Andy Serkis would come on set and help Lupita work through this stuff because mocap is it's a different animal, and of course Andy Serkis is the guy who is like known as the master with all the work that he did in Lord of the Rings as Gollum. And Finn. See, this is fun to revisit because I'm really seeing how much his character's changed over the course of the trilogy. So if he's peacing out, where does that leave Rey? Oh, I thought about talking about the Millennium Falcon dice in this movie, but then I remembered it doesn't actually appear in this one. It's not until The Last Jedi that Han's dice end up making a resurgence, which is a really weird thing because it was never that big of a deal in the first place. It's only in A New Hope. And then Rian Johnson made a big deal about it. So Rey is running off. Who's the girl, Maz says. Wonder what Han Solo's response was there. All right, so here's Finn is talking to this guy, the guy with the red helmet. His name is Crimson Commando. And I forget what this globby gloop guy is. I always thought this was an interesting scene because JJ has put her on the steps and he's down below. It makes for, I think he's trying to create an interesting level. I don't know. I'm mixed on it. Just wish we could have stayed in this world. Hitch says, I just wish we could have stayed in this world. JJ created such an interesting and nostalgic story, in my opinion. Yeah, it's really too bad that it got passed back and forth between him and Ryan. Apparently, JJ, I heard somewhere as I was digging around for tidbits to share with you guys that JJ did write like an outline for 8 and 9. But of course, Ryan was able to do whatever he wanted. He didn't have to follow JJ's direction or anything. So he did something that I'm certain JJ never would have. Killing Snoke and saying Rey's parents were no ones. All right, so this is sad because, you know, we see these two friends that have bonded so far over the film and we think, oh, they're going somewhere. Nope, Finn's a jerk. He's running off with the Crimson Commando. Apparently, I love that name, by the way. Can you tell? I've already said it like 5 times. But I think he has like 5 different names he goes by. And his helmet, by the way, comes from the same world of where Grievous lives. You might remember from my Revenge of the Sith commentary, Grievous is the alien species Kaleesh. So on all the Kaleesh wear these crazy masks, which of course Grievous has, and then this guy has. All right, big deal coming up here, y'all. This is the Force Vision. We're planting seeds for a future reveal. This is in writing what we call setup. So we're setting up for big things down the road. And kind of going back to what Josh Hitch is talking about right now, JJ created this interesting foundation, and Ryan didn't quite continue throwing the seed in the same garden. You like that analogy? I think it works seamlessly. I also like this scene because, again, so many practical props in this room. Like the chest takes you back to the days with Obi-Wan Kenobi and his home where he opens up a big chest, right, and takes out this very same lightsaber. Oh, I'm getting chills. There's so much to say about this Force Vision, y'all, but I kind of want to just sit and enjoy it. But I will say right away, the first shot is a replica of the Cloud City hallway that we see in Empire Strikes Back. So watch out for that. And originally we were going to see Luke Skywalker and Vader like fighting in the distance. So here's Cloud City. We hear young Rey. We hear Yoda's voice. All right, I'm going to talk through the whole thing just because it's fun. We hear Luke yelling. Here's Luke's hand touching R2. This is apparently where the Jedi Temple was. Here is Kylo and his knights that we didn't get to see at all in The Last Jedi, killing a bunch of people. And then here is Baby Rey. And of course, now that we've seen The Rise of Skywalker, we know that that is Ochi's ship. Oh! And I don't know if you heard Obi-Wan say Rey. So that Rey. Oh, and then there's the Ewan McGregor version of Obi-Wan saying, these are your first steps. And of course, he comes back for Rise of Skywalker and he says, these are your final steps. So that's some cool connective tissue there. JJ tried. He tried his best to connect the dots when he could, but he wasn't set up very well. So the Alec Guinness version, or you hear Alec Guinness say the word Rey, and they chopped up a word. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I should have gone back and looked at it. But it was like the middle of a word. Danger Rey? I don't remember. Somehow they pulled Alec Guinness's old dialogue and made him say the name Rey. This is a big moment here. This scene does a lot. This is really the midpoint of Rey's story, right? So the plot's gonna change a different direction here because her one objective so far has been returning BB-8 to the Resistance. Well, now she doesn't really know what to do. Sorry, I'm trying to listen to Maz. We get to hear some of John Williams' theme, and Daisy's just killing it. The way this girl can cry on demand. She's very invested in all that she does, and I have mad respect for her there. So this is like the third and final rejection of the call. So Caleb, for you, like this is another Joseph Campbell thing, is a hero refusing the call to adventure. Rey says she doesn't want anything to do with it. She doesn't want anything to do with this potential future that's laid out before her. She obviously senses that she has a connection to the Force, to this greater story, but she rejects it. So now she's off wandering around with no real objective. And afraid. Thank you, Peter Tripp. Oh, that was going to drive me crazy. Peter reminded me that the Alec Guinness line of dialogue was the word afraid from A New Hope. So they just chopped off the A and the F at the beginning of the word and the D at the end and got Rey. All right, Hux again. I think this was the one scene that made a lot of people be like, not fans of Hux. Definitely channeling a Nazi Germany feel here with the red flags in the background. My wife in particular hates this part. I'm not too bothered by it. Hey, guy's into his day job. He is one of the younger generals that we've ever really seen. Okay, so now we're going to see... I just realized that girl, that Console, is in Ant-Man and the Wasp. She plays Ghost. I forgot about that. If anybody's seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, she plays the villain. I don't know if we'll see her again in this movie, but yeah, she's chilling out there in the First Order's gunroom or whatever. All right, so they're attacking the Republic, right? The Republic is now based in the Hosnian system, on Hosnian Prime, and they're going to blow up like all 4 or 5 planets in the system. There's some interesting stuff in the novels about how the Starkiller base has modified this technology. I think they're like literally using hyperspace to project this across very far distances. Peter says Hux has the 70s sideburns going on. He does. He's got a day job. He's doing all right. So this woman in this shot in Hosnian Prime in the center, the African-American chick, her character is part of the Resistance. And there was a cut scene where Leia is introduced earlier, and she's like, "Hey, Corey," her character's name's Corey. "I need you to go to Hosnian Prime and tell the Republic that like the First Order is legit." Poor girl goes to Hosnian and dies in the attack. And the guy, the alien guy right next to that girl, Corey, was supposed to be the new chancellor of the New Republic. So there's some fun trivia for you. Caleb says what's interesting is how his facial emotion shows a great fear of the power he's decided to put wrath on people in the Republic. Great acting. I like that assessment there of General Hux. All right, so Rey is telling, "Hey, BB-8, why are you coming after me?" Again, this is really good stuff. Like, I love that there's a droid-human relationship going on here. All right, Rey, you're in trouble now. You're going to just keep running. Beautiful shot there, the TIE fighters in front of the sun. There was a whole scene, too, in this castle where Unkar Plutt shows up looking for Rey. And I'm glad they cut it because it doesn't make any sense that he would travel that far to get her or know how quickly to find her. But it was cool because Chewbacca rips Unkar Plutt's arm off. Back to like A New Hope when Han says, you know what happens when Chewies get angry. So that was fun to really see. The deleted scene is somewhere. I think it's actually on Disney Plus. So after this, y'all should watch it. It's hilarious. Oh, and there goes her castle. A little statue of herself just falling down. And the Kylo Ren theme. This whole character unfortunately turned into a joke. But yeah, I agree, Caleb. Yeah, now that you've pointed that out, it kind of works more for me with Hux. But yeah, in Last Jedi, they just turned him into a doofus. Not a huge fan. Okay, so here's Rey sort of figuring out how to use a gun. Notice she doesn't really know what she's doing. Even though people say, "Oh, she's so good at everything." This is a big part of my argument against her being a Mary Sue. Because what happens when Kylo Ren faces her for the first time? And when Kylo Ren is not injured, like he is at the end of the movie. Should I spoil it for you? He easily overtakes her. So here she is running. We'll see how long it takes for Kylo to show up here. But I think there's an argument to be made that a lot of characters are Mary Sues. And if you don't know what the definition of a Mary Sue is, just real quickly, it's like a character, usually female, that is good at everything and never needs any help. And that's a lot of the criticism that the character has been getting, but I don't totally buy. And even if she does fit some of that criteria, I think she's still super interesting and relatable. And that's the big part that we need as an audience, is to relate to the characters. So whereas when the prequel trilogy, I never really related to Anakin that much, I totally relate to Rey because, one, Daisy Ridley is awesome, and two, they've really humanized her and created moments for us to see her bond with other characters. All right, this is a funny part that people make fun of a lot. The traitor moment when the stormtrooper shows up and throws his guns away and it's like, "Oh yeah, I want to fight with my whatever this." It's not a sword. It's not I don't know what you call this thing. And Finn, his fighting style is interesting here. Kind of continuing in the tradition that prequel trilogy had about giving each performer like a different fighting style. They do that really well here. Kylo's fighting style is really cool. I know some of you guys are more into the fighting styles than I am. Caleb, you might be able to touch on this, but Kylo's especially is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like this strength, but also uninhibited and uncontrolled, which really goes with the rest of his character, right? All right, so thankfully, C-3PO, or whoever it was that got the message at the Resistance base, was able to mobilize all of these X-Wings quickly enough. Because here comes Poe. He's the first ship in that black X-Wing. Tight. Super tight. Oh, and there's another deleted scene with Han Solo in the castle basement where him and Finn kind of get cornered by the stormtroopers, and Han has a lot of comedic moments there that I'm kind of bummed got cut because they were funny, but also not really that important. So it makes sense. Here's some great camera stuff. Kind of, yeah, going back to what you were saying, William, the dogfights here are a lot of fun. Look at that explosion. Stuart says Kylo's fighting style was a lot like Luke's, actually. Huh. Maybe in Empire, yeah. It's just a lot of these broad swings. I'll have to watch it very intently when we get to the end of the film. Ooh, I love that stunt work when that stormtrooper comes running down the ramp and falls forward. This is a great shot of Poe in the X-Wing. Again, the camera just tracking him all the way. Great work. I mean, how long is that shot? That was probably a solid 20, 25 seconds there. Caleb says Kylo has a lot of momentum for a brute force attacks. His fighting is also very showy, which I think is him trying to become known and intimidating like Vader? Oh, I see what you're saying. Intimidating like Vader. Yeah, I can definitely see the showy aspect of Kylo's technique. Also, can we talk about his lightsaber and how awesome it is? I love that it looks like an old Arthurian sword, like from medieval times. Like it's got. Okay, so yeah, like she doesn't really stand a chance here against Kylo. He is using the Force like crazy on her. She can't resist. His voice really is pretty awesome. We still haven't seen him take off the mask either. I remember that was a big deal too before this movie came out. Oh, this shot's cool when he puts the lightsaber right in front of her face like that. So yeah, people seem to forget their first confrontation. Like, she doesn't stand a chance. There's that sound design that's just oh so beautiful. Here's where he does, go to sleep. And she just collapses in his arms. All right. And Han watches his son, and Finn watches his girlfriend. More of John Boyega running. Poor guy. So yeah, just going back to Rey and kind of the complaint that there's not enough consequences for these characters. But I think if you really think about this moment, her losing in this fight with Kylo has massive consequences on the rest of the story, because now Finn convinces everybody to send him to Starkiller Base with Han Solo, which basically leads to Han Solo's death. So that moment is just a catalyst for all this future stuff that lines up like a bunch of dominoes. And here's Princess Leia. To me, she's royalty, like Lord Santeca said at the beginning of the movie. And we hear that theme, and 3PO has a good joke. He don't have a whole lot to do in this movie, but anytime I can get Han and 3PO together, I'm happy. Those are funny, Caleb. Yeah, Caleb says Kylo's my favorite character in the trilogy, carries it all in my opinion. Yeah, I'm probably a toss-up between Kylo and Rey. I'm a big Rey fan, and I'm proud to admit it. Oh, this music with these two just wrecks me. And Chewie come in and give her a hug. It's just It's really meaningful. Like, I never thought this was going to happen 10 years ago. Carrie struggled getting back into the swing of things, too. She hadn't acted for a long time. And I think the very first day, she came home and was like, I don't know if they used any of her footage from the first day because she was so nervous. So here we are in Dakar. This is the resistance base. Finn, I guess, did not decide to go with the Crimson Commando because his new objective is saving Rey. Because he loves her. That's my headcanon, y'all. I'm glad JJ didn't spill the beans about why or what Finn was trying to say in The Rise of Skywalker when they're sinking in the pit. I never told you. I think it's because he loved her. I mean, I think JJ mentioned something like in an interview one time, but I'm glad that in the movie he didn't explain what it was Finn was going to say. All right, Poe's back. Hey, buddy, bro, you're alive. Wow, maybe I will stick around here. Caleb says, my sister wants to know what you think about Phasma. I think her costume design is awesome. I love that chrome. In fact, her design was originally one that was going to be considered for Kylo, that chrome look, but they ditched it for Kylo, but still really wanted to keep it. The tough thing with Phasma is just she's not given a whole lot to do, especially in The Last Jedi. Like it almost sets her up for a death in this movie, and then they bring her back for a hot second in Last Jedi and kill her immediately, and that's a huge bummer. I think they should have continued with the Finn Phasma storyline, and that would have been way more interesting for Finn in Episode 8, as opposed to the whole Casino Planet stuff, which was not interesting. Carrie's cute. Oh, this is a cute little scene here when Chewie has a good joke. I like all of Chewie's jokes in this trilogy, but I think Chewie's more than that, right? He's always been funny, but you got to remember to treat him like another character, another vital component of the story. And they lost that in some places, especially Last Jedi. I was trying to say he was force sensitive. Yeah, so Stu, going back to what Finn was trying to say in Rise of Skywalker, JJ has said that is what he was going to mention, that he was force sensitive, but in my own head canon, it's all about the love. If you don't say it on screen, then I get to come up with my own reason. All right, so here's R2-D2, who's been sleepy, and this is never really fully explained either, which I don't mind. I don't really mind when things aren't fully explained most of the time. The way that I saw this was that R2, again, just another important character in the story, one that happened to bond with Luke in a really important way. If I'm going to continue with this analogy that the droids are kind of like pets, it's almost as if R2 lost his master and now is, depressed and waiting for him to come back. All right, so this is a big scene with Luke or Han and Leia. There's too much Vader in him, which is the same line that Uncle Owen said about Luke. That's when I lost you both. Carrie does pretty good here. You can tell that they didn't have as many shots of some of her stuff as they wanted. I mean, just because I'm a nerd when it comes to editing and stuff, I can be like, ooh, I think they wanted something a little bit better than that. But see, like that shot there was just a little out of focus on Carrie, but I think it was the best they had of her performance. I'm getting real nerdy now. Oh, this is a great line. If Luke couldn't reach him, then how could I? You're his father. These movies are about family. I've said this since I started doing these commentaries. Star Wars, at least for me, is about the relationships, the family and friend relationships. And Han has to grapple with that right now. You feel like you kind of failed your son. So His objective is to go save his son and prove his love. Fighting for love, like if as an actor, if your objective is one motivated by love, that's always the most powerful choice you can go with. This scene, y'all, is brilliant. These two have amazing chemistry. Hitch says Fisher's best acting was in Jedi. Return of the Jedi? I'm assuming you mean Return of the Jedi. I'm always partial to Empire, but that's just me. All right, so we get to see Kylo Ren's face. I remember Adam Driver doing an interview on like some late talk show, and they kept on being like, "Is this actually you?" They would show pictures of Kylo Ren with the mask, be like, "Is this you?" And Adam would just be like, "Yeah, that's me." And they would show him another picture. Yeah, that's me. So Daisy has nothing but like really nice things to say about Adam during this scene. You know, him being a very generous actor. I think super highly of Adam Driver. And I really hope Daisy Ridley continues to work too. I think she's really talented. But it's one of those things where, you know, Mark Hamill didn't get work for a long time. Hayden Christensen, like, what is he doing? When you play, Hitch says ROTJ. Yeah, I gotcha. Kelvin says, pretty sure Carrie Fisher was all drugged up during Jedi. Go rewatch the scene of the Ewok party. Wasn't everybody drugged up during the Ewok party, though? Okay, so this bit here where Kylo Ren is talking about the island, I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that. I always thought maybe he was talking about Ahch-To, and maybe he had some kind of vision about where Luke is and how they're both kind of searching for where Luke is. But dang, the chemistry, like, so this whole trilogy, the way that it does work, and obviously there's things that don't, but anytime these two are on screen together, it's like so powerful. And as I said in my opening rant, that is something that we've not seen in any Star Wars movie before. This kind of relationship between a protagonist and an antagonist. Peter says, it's a party. Give her a break. Those Ewoks, I'm telling you, there's one that's smoking marijuana during this storytelling scene that C-3PO does. All right, so this is like a great little moment where there's no dialogue between the two. It's literally just music, that sound effect of Kylo using the Force on her, and the performances from these two actors. Look at those eyes. See, this is camera work that George Lucas never did in the prequels. Adam Driver, man. You will never be as strong as Darth Vader. So there's something about this connection that really causes her Force ability to spring forth. And now that we know the full story about their Force dyad, it makes even more sense. Her meeting Kylo face to face is the catalyst that sparks her Force usage. Stuart's kind of talking about that comic book where Anakin comes across the remains of 3PO. I remember some of that, and that was really interesting. Josh Hitch, drugs were cool then. Sarcasm. Oh, that's hilarious. Poor Carrie, man, she had quite a life. Quite a life. Andy Serkis. Not only is Serkis so good at his mocap work, but his voice. His voice acting is just top notch. Here is another great scene. So, oh shoot, I'm click the thing again. This is a perfect scene of us witnessing a character discovering something in the moment. You might remember me talking about this concept of show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. In the prequels, we are told all the time that Obi-Wan thinks that Anakin is compulsive and blah, blah, blah. But we don't ever get to see it. here in this moment, we get to see Rey making these discoveries of her Force abilities in real time. And we already know that, the Force has a strong influence on the weak-minded. And usually stormtroopers are weak-minded. Oh, the use of sound in this scene is just brilliant. And I believe that's the Daniel Craig character there. Andy Serkis is going. 3P or Josh Hitt says, then R2 should have been sad for much longer. I'm losing track of what we're talking about now, y'all. Sorry. Oh, Kylo finds out she's gone. And he gotta throw another temper tantrum. The two stormtroopers that slowly back up. Oh yeah, that's the other interesting thing about Starkiller Base is it charges itself from like pulling the energy of a sun. Yeah, Caleb, Daniel Craig. Speaking of Mary Sue's, James Bond, the original James Bonds, were kind of fell into that category. There's an argument to be made that Luke Skywalker is a Mary Sue as well. My wife shakes her head in agreement there. All right, so here we are in the war room on Dakar. It wouldn't be a Star Wars movie without a conversation about our battle plan. So this actor just passed away a couple weeks ago. The gray-haired gentleman, 2 spots away from Harrison Ford. There's Admiral Akbar. And then Greg Gunberg is the chubby guy from Heroes. He's a good friend of J.J. Abrams. Not a huge fan of his acting. Here he's a sweetheart of a guy, but yeah, friend of mine. I also should probably mention that, like, as we're getting into this Disney era stuff, I either know somebody who knows people involved in some of these films. So if I ever seem to get like cryptic or really quiet, it's because I'm trying to be respectful of certain individuals. I'm actually just going to steal this son. Hope that's okay. These scenes are tough. We've seen so many of these battle plan scenes that this one's a grind. The one in Rogue One is a grind. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's why I like Empire so much, because we don't have to sit through one of these things. And then now we have the montage again. Oh, and there's one of these in Rise of Skywalker too. Nyan Num, I haven't mentioned him. He's the little guy who used to fly with Lando. Nice little exchange there between Poe and Finn. I feel like Nyan Num should have had an entire monologue about Lando, where far out thou? Where? Never mind. I tried to make a joke and it didn't work. Kelvin says Luke gets knocked out in his first on-film fight. In the cantina? Is that the one you're talking about? When he gets knocked to the ground? I think that's his first. Oh, no, Tusken Raider. Yeah, Tusken Raider beatdown. I got to say, as I'm watching these two on screen again, some of the behind-the-scenes footage, it's just so heartwarming to see those two actors on screen together, and having to do take after take of Harrison holding her in his arms, because having been on set, you have to do this stuff so many times, and you're kind of just like stuck in this position where you're holding this person awkwardly for whatever long. But it doesn't play as awkward because, like, they are friends. I mean, in real life, they've had a weird past, don't get me wrong. But for those of us who love that relationship, and the Han Leia thing is like what got me to be obsessed with Star Wars in the first place, it was just really, really beautiful. Josh Hitch says Luke was not a Mary Sue. You're right, he's a Marty Sue. Dude, I gotta say, Hitch, Luke blew up the Death Star. Out of all the X-Wing pilots, trained X-Wing pilots, on that first run, Luke, who had never flown an X-Wing before, blew it up. So that is kind of one of the things that people bring up about Mary Sue's, is being good at something that they don't have training in. Thoughts? All right, so here the Falcon is crash landing on Starkiller Base. And there was a lot of scenes here that got cut. They shot all the stuff with Kylo Ren. Actually, well, we know that he senses Han Solo's presence, but we don't see Kylo go to the Falcon in the final cut of the film. So that was some cool stuff to see Kylo enter the Falcon, go to the cockpit, like, and the anger kind of coming to the surface for him. Marky Sue. Hitch says missed first shot. Oh, because Luke went around once and he missed the first one and then he got the second one right on. That's why. Did he miss his first shot? I think it was the other guy that missed the first shot, the gold leader guy. Just a peck on the surface. I think it was the other guy. He sucked at fighting in A New Hope, but he didn't suck at flying. This is funny stuff. That's not how the Force works. See, Finn kind of put everybody in an awkward position here by claiming he could get Han on there to blow stuff up. Yeah, here's the chick who's in Ant-Man. Yeah, she doesn't get a lot of screen time. That's a fun shot of the stormtrooper getting shot and pushed back. I always thought it was weird that Han has a coat that he just kind of casts aside in these moments. It's like, you didn't really have to have us track the coat. Phasma. By the way, if you need a timestamp, we're at 1:37:46. 1:37. I do like the Han and Finn dynamic here towards the end. Will we use the Force? Hitch giving more examples of things that Luke couldn't do. Listen, I'm not trying to say that there were some things that he couldn't do. I'm just saying there are other things that he was surprisingly good at. I've been giving examples of things that Rey isn't good at. I just think it's really a cop-out when people are like, I don't like this movie because I heard online that she's a Mary Sue, and they presented a really good YouTube video about it. I mean, I might be a little mean here, but like, I think Rey is a compelling character, and the people who say she's a Mary Sue are trying to say that she's not a compelling character. She might have a lot of characteristics of a Mary Sue, but like I was saying earlier, that doesn't mean I don't connect to her. Peter says, how does Han Solo know how the Force works? Maybe Finn is right. Yeah, maybe. The other pilots didn't have Kenobi in their heads, which basically is just like, yeah, Luke has the ability to use the Force, because he's communicating with Kenobi using the Force. Well, Rey obviously has Force abilities as well. So anything and everything that she's doing is in some way influenced by that. Nearly got killed by a Yeti. Had to sleep in a Tauntaun. Hey, Rey had to sleep in an AT-AT her whole life. This guy, the Asian guy from Lost, obviously is a good friend of JJ as well. I think his name is General Statera or something. Oh, I was going to mention earlier during that interrogation scene, like that was one of the first scenes that Daisy auditioned with. And there's some footage of her audition tape with, it's not Adam Driver, it's some other reader. She's just killing it. Like, putting the whole debate on the Mary Sue junk aside, like, she is so committed to her role. It's really impressive. You guys are making me laugh. Which is the whole point. This is fun. Star Wars is supposed to be fun, right? That's what I always keep saying. Oh, one other note I wanted to make about the interrogation scene is what makes it so good is that it's funny, it moves the plot along seamlessly, and it showcases the growth of the character. Again, kind of going back to Rey discovering things and us being able to experience with her. Did Luke ever actually use the Force in Ep 4 other than shooting the missile? Well, I guess that begs the question, when you hear a Force ghost speak to you, are you using the Force? I guess there's an argument that could be made either way there. He doesn't really use the Force in a dramatic fashion, though. I mean, as he's using the lightsaber on the Falcon and playing with the remote, he talks to Kenobi about, I think I could use the Force. I could almost see the remote. So maybe. Here's Rey climbing up the side of the wall. Finn's like, hey, my girlfriend. Admiral Statura. Yeah, isn't that what I said? Statura? The Force is using you, man. I like that, Caleb. Is Greg Gumberg in Lost as well? See, I knew him more from Heroes because he plays a bigger role in that. This is a cute character beat. We get to see them hug, and Finn's like, yeah, and Rey's like, dude, you're in the friend zone. I kind of have a thing going with the Man in Black. See, it was sad that in Last Jedi the two of them were separated, and I mean, I'm not going to talk too much about Last Jedi, but just a little bit. The fact that our three main characters never spent any time together in that movie was a gross misstep by one Rian Johnson. Hitch, end of discussion. Oh wait, Hitch. Luke is just a narcissist, not a Marist. Oh, Luke was never my favorite character anyway. You guys already know that. I'm a Han Solo guy through and through. I like Luke though. There's not too many Star Wars characters that I don't like, with the exception of Jar Jar. He's really the big one. Rose, not a big fan of Rose. Or Haldo. Basically, a lot of the new characters introduced in Last Jedi, I'm not a big fan of. So Han's got his coat back on now. It's like, okay, so you threw the coat off just to put it on. I mean, I guess they've decided now to return to the base and help the fighter pilots out a bit. And this jacket, Rey is now wearing the jacket. Kind of going back to what Corey said way early on in this watch along, was that the jacket moves from Poe to Finn to Rey. So that's a nice connective tissue there. Caleb says he doesn't like Jar Jar or Grievous. Oh, I don't like Grievous. Yeah, you're right. I don't really like Grievous very much. I think Grievous had a lot of potential, like a lot of stuff with the prequels. But he became kind of a joke. Oh, this is the last time those two get to hang out. Guys, I was so wrecked in the movie theater when this moment happened. See, all this stuff is Jonas. Peter Mayhew could not climb a ladder like that in the costume. All right, before we get to this, I need to just scroll through these notes and see if there's anything. Yeah, Corey, the jacket. Stu, yeah, I don't really like Grievous. I like his look, and I think the backstory that he originally had in some of the novels was super interesting, but then didn't incorporate any of that into the movie, and it super bugged me. But just one guy's opinion. Hitch, focusing on this film now. I know it's tough. It's so tricky to stay on target. Stay on target. The cough with Grievous too. See, I need to stay focused. Yeah, as we're gearing up towards this scene, you all probably are already fully aware that Harrison always thought that killing off Han would add a significant weight to the film. It's like, come on, man. Like, I don't know if he would have done this movie, though, if they hadn't agreed to kill off the character. So his death isn't something that I necessarily blame JJ on. But I was heartbroken to see him go. I literally yelled in my seat and grabbed Leah. Ben! First time Ben Solo's name. For all of you Legends fans, you EU fans out there, we know that there was a Ben Skywalker. Ben was the name of Luke and Mara Jade's son. And I like to think that this was just kind of continuing in that direction. But of course, we know Obi-Wan went by Ben for decades too on Tatooine. And we got to have our new heroes watch this play out. Corey says this death is brutal. Even in repeated viewings, it's hard to watch. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, sometimes I skip it. Leah, if I'm watching with the wife, she makes me skip it every time. It's just gut-wrenching. Like, I couldn't believe, like, I never thought it would happen. Even as I was watching it play out and I see Kylo there with a saber, I never entertained the idea that he was going to stab him through the chest. Corey, there's not even a body to bury. The first time I've seen this since Rise of Skywalker. They have a great connection too. Again, we've got two amazing actors on set together. I'm loving these comments, guys. It's gut wrenching, man. Kylo. So, quick acting note, especially for film, because the camera catches everything. Look at Adam Driver go. One of the best notes I would get from an acting coach would be do nothing. Because as a theater actor, especially, we want to present things to our audience. But if you're feeling the emotions, you don't need to present anything. You just need to do nothing. And Adam Driver in this scene really embraces that. He does so little. It's like it's all in the eyes, right? Look at that shot, that angle, that Dutch angle is super pretty. Caleb says Stu wins comment king. And of course, second Han grabs the lightsaber. The lights go down. This is a gut punch. I don't want to watch, guys. Like, my heart rate is going. This red light shining on their faces. I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the power to do it. Oof. What a crazy direction to go. My childhood hero falls down. Like you said, Corey, not even a body to bury. Oh, Kylo Ren. And of course, Leia can feel it. Not only is she force sensitive, but like that's her husband, man. And Chewie. See, this would have been a nice moment. Okay, we need to remember that Chewie shoots Kylo in the gut, which heavily influences his ability to fight. But yeah, this would have been fun to give Chewie maybe just a little bit more action stuff. I know that he's got a goal, right? He's there to blow up this part of the base. So he doesn't want to lose sight of that. But just from an emotional standpoint, because we know how attached he was to Han, it would have been fun. All right, so our heroes need to leave. Kylo's locked eyes with them. He's going after them. Corey says, I wish there had been a quiet moment with Chewie after this, later at the base, watching him grieve. I wanted just 10, 20 seconds of Chewie just sitting there. this should be a huge deal to him. Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying. How does this impact Chewbacca? And of course, we know that JJ had a big misstep when he walks past Leia and doesn't give her a hug. That was the one thing that JJ was just like, I admit it, I screwed up. Like, I made a mistake. Here was one of the first shots that we got in the trailer. Actually, I think it was a little bit closer up to Kylo's backside. This set, okay. This, if you watch one documentary about The Force Awakens, the pounding of the chest is kind of funny too. I know my friend Peter hates that moment. It reminds me of some EU stuff, but I won't go into all that right now. But if you're going to watch one documentary about TFA, I would recommend watching the one about how they built this set. This is not a location, y'all. This is on a soundstage. They brought in real trees to put on here. They have a painted back, like 360-degree backdrop around this huge space. And then, of course, all the snow they got is super cool too. But I think they just decided, let's do a practical set, a built set. That way we can control the elements a little bit more and don't have to worry about the time of day that we're shooting and whatnot. Yeah, Caleb says this set is so cool. Have you watched that? Watched that documentary? It's real good. Yeah. So I like this bit here where Kylo's, I don't know my sword terminology, y'all, but basically the edge of his sword cuts into Finn's shoulder. It's pretty good. Lightsaber in the snow. That lightsaber belongs to me. I love that bit because it's just this. Oh, I love all this stuff. This moment when we think the saber's going to Kylo Ren, and why is he struggling to get it? I think it's because Rey's back there the whole time trying to figure this out. And then the swelling of the John Williams music, oh. The cross guard, that's what it's called. Cores of cores? I don't know. Look at her ignite that thing. I love his saber. I just love this fight. See, I talked a little bit about the duel at the end of Revenge of the Sith with Obi-Wan and Anakin, how I wish the emotional stakes were a little bit higher between the two of them because we just didn't have enough time to really develop the rise and fall of their friendship because we were focused on other things like falling in love on Naboo and hunting down stuff on Geonosis and whatnot. But here, we've had a couple important scenes between Kylo and Rey that already there's this deep connection between the two characters. So not only do we get a stylistically fun lightsaber duel to watch, but we have emotional stakes involved. Stu says, why was Kylo so emotional when he called Finn a traitor? He hardly knew him. Traitor! I think they just decided, let's make it a running gag that everybody just yells the word traitor at Finn every time we see him. No, I mean, Kylo knew that he betrayed the First Order. They had the conversation about that on the Star Destroyer. What's the name of his Star Destroyer? Finalizer. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that. Finalizer. Yeah, so I think Phasma just continued to whisper in Kylo's ear, Finn is a traitor. Finn is a traitor. He's the worst. Also, I mean, if it wasn't for Finn, Rey never would. I won't say never, but she would have had to found a different way to get the droid back to the Resistance. We certainly wouldn't be where we are at this exact moment in time. All right, get to see some explosions. Yeah, I just find that pull of the lightsaber out of the snow to be very satisfying and like a super chilly, goosebump moment. So beautiful, all this snow. Corey says, interesting misdirect with Finn holding lightsaber in the marketing. Agreed. Like, I remember going into this having no idea who the main character was. Like, I think I really thought that it was going to be Finn. And again, we weren't even sure if Adam Driver was the guy behind the Kylo Ren mask. And of course, Mark Hamill's face wasn't anywhere to be found. I feel like I heard at one point that that was also a George Lucas idea to have Luke not show up till the very end. All right, I love this exchange here where Kylo's just yelling in her face, "You need a teacher." The lighting on both of their faces here, the wind, it's just really pretty. See, your brain knows that this is a real environment. Back to my complaints about CG stuff being overused. Certainly, there's a CG element going on here. I mean, I'm not oblivious to that. I know that there's some touch-ups going on, but when you can do the most you can practically, it has such a greater impact. Kylo's starting to take a beating. Remember, he got shot earlier. Somebody online was pointing out similarities in Rey's fighting style to Palpatine's fighting style. I bet Caleb probably has some info about that. Peter, yeah, the reflection of the lightsabers in their eyes. Oh, that's a great moment when, yes, I love this shot. We got the blue lightsaber up in the air and the red one on the ground. There's just the images. Like JJ's really good at capturing specific images. Images that like in and of themselves tell a story. You need a teacher. I like that line. The extremely see Rey with eyes closed, then opening shot as a last minute reshoot. No way, Corey. So that extreme shot of Rey with her eyes closed and then opening again was shot last minute in JJ's office in Santa Monica, right? The bad robot offices. That's crazy. This guy who's like, I'm leaving. Even Hux is gone. Yeah, we don't know any of these guys really. Peter asks, do I think she's fighting with the dark side in that scene? Ooh, now that's the kind of question I like to ask. Certainly possible. Now that we know her heritage, sort of thing. Yeah, I bet there's probably a pretty good argument to be made that she does. I don't know that I'm going to go down that rabbit hole because I'm already down so many Star Wars rabbit holes right now, y'all. But yeah. Stu, whenever someone says bad robot, I think about Spy Kids. Really? I don't think I ever saw any Spy Kids movies. JJ tells all these stories. Yeah. Yeah, Caleb, give it a look-see. I can't. Maybe I'll see if I can find it. There's something about I think the way she thrusts was similar to the way that Palpatine brought the saber up to his head and like thrusted forward in Revenge of the Sith. Again, I'm not good when it comes to a lot of that sort of stuff because I'm obviously more a character development nerd. All right, so here we see the base getting blown up. I need to look over some of these other notes that I haven't, like just miscellaneous notes. Oh yeah, all the different directors that got considered for this film. Favreau was considered for a while. Of course, he now is heavily involved in The Mandalorian. Ben Affleck, Guillermo del Toro, David Fincher, and then of course JJ was the one that Steven Spielberg himself recommended, got the job. But even Matt Vaughn like literally left the X-Men franchise because he thought he was going to do this. He didn't end up directing X-Men Days of Future Past because he was planning on doing this and making it more violent apparently, which is why Disney didn't let him do it. Here's the Chewie moment where Chewie walks past Leia and doesn't give her a hug. There it is. Chewie's on the left side of the camera, and Leia moves towards Rey instead. JJ, to his credit, has admitted that as a mistake. So I'm glad that he at least acknowledges that. But it's a bummer, right? It's a bummer. Yeah, Caleb Ben Affleck was considered. Peter Trip, lens flare. Was there a lens flare? Ooh, Corey, I'm very excited to hear your story. So there's Chewie grieving for like 3 seconds. But yeah, I tend to agree, Corey. It's not enough. I think really what we needed as well was just seeing him being consoled by Leia and by Luke, even at the beginning of Return of the Jedi or Last Jedi. R2's back. This is 30 seconds of his 60-second trilogy scenes. One thing that JJ's always stressed emotion. Like if you're a fan of his Star Trek movies, which I really am, I was never a Trekkie growing up, so I don't really get bent out of shape about stuff with new Star Trek movies. But he talks about emotion a lot, and like him and Lawrence Kasdan, the other writer, they would discuss the script for hours as they walked because they found that if they were out walking in LA or Santa Monica or whatever, that helped them kind of just I don't know, keep the movement of the film always going at a good pace. Josh Hitt says, "What woke up R2?" See, I was gonna say maybe Luke's doing something, but we know that Luke has been disconnected from the Force. What do y'all think about this? Is it possible for droids to have Force sensitivity? I agree with that note, Corey, about not enough 3PO and R2 in any of these new ones. I don't know. I haven't. I'm still working through the R2D2 stuff in my own personal head canon. I maybe would have liked a little bit more of explanation about R2 and his sleepiness and his wakey upness. Carrie Fisher hated this costume design with her hair up like this. This is another interesting thing that Rey is sent to go deliver the message to Luke. Mixed feelings about it. I don't love it because it's like, why wouldn't Leia go seek out her brother? Now, on the flip side, I can understand Leia delegating somebody else to do it because she has so much going on at the base as general of the Resistance. But if that's the case, that is a scene that I feel like we really need. I mean, they had an exchange there. Why couldn't they just add one line where Leia is like, I can't do this, so I need you to do it for me? Like, it would even really elevate their relationship more. And by the way, Carrie Fisher's daughter is there as well. She's been on the screen for a few times, and I haven't even mentioned Billy Lord. But yeah, Billy Lord, I think she has more to do in the next movie, actually. I think she has the first line of the next movie, in fact. The return of the revenge of the attack of the Last Jedi. Oh. Corey, yeah, back to 5 comments ago. Film is more about emotion than logic and filling plot holes. Yeah, absolutely. As long as those plot holes or whatever aren't distracting you from the emotional connection of the film, 100%. And that's what people need to just like get over. Like every time I sit down and watch this or Rise of Skywalker, I have a great time and I'm emotionally invested. Like I try to go in and be critical in the way that a lot of bloggers are, but I can't do it. I can't because these characters are enjoyable. So that kind of goes back to your points about film being an emotional experience, emotional cathartic experience. Leia should have had a Force moment. Yeah, I would have liked a little bit more of those sprinkled throughout. I was okay with the Last Jedi Force moment, even if it did look a little weird. Oh, when deciding to send out Rey. Yeah, I'm totally about that. Don't don't forget the rise. This piece of orchestration here was something John Williams wrote just for this ending bit. Oh, while I'm talking about John Williams again, he agreed to write everything for the score except the castle scene. So he didn't want to do the aliens like playing game stuff again. So Lin-Manuel Miranda actually did that music, which was really interesting. I love this end. So there's no dialogue in this scene either. By the way, people kept on thinking that maybe that was a grave Luke was standing next to, that rock that's propped up to the left. And they're like, hey, that's Mara Jade's gravestone. That's his wife. She was around. Oh, I love this reveal. Mark looks so good in this shot. By the time Rise of Skywalker comes around, his hair has gotten like really stringy and he doesn't look as good. But his hair here is like luscious and full. This, oh, it's just cut and shot so beautifully. And the music, all the feels. JJ did a great job. And Ryan just doesn't have the respect for the material that I think JJ has. And that's, again, one guy's opinion. Yeah, Steve says Luke shows a lot of emotion in this moment. Absolutely. More Force moments for Leia would have helped sell the Last Jedi Leia in space moment. Yeah, I agree. This place is from a Led Zeppelin album. Oh, it's hilarious. Guys, woo! We made it. See, every time I see this, it's an emotional roller coaster. There's so much going on with Rey, making new discoveries with her and Kylo Ren, the Han Solo stuff, finally seeing Luke at the end. What a cliffhanger. Like, very well executed. And then, I just have a problem with Rian Johnson making it an effort to subvert expectations. Like, he wasn't focused on creating an emotional story. He was about throwing people off, I think. The throwing of the lightsaber away, it didn't bother me so much the first time, but the more that I dwell on it, it just doesn't quite sit right. All right, I'm going to try to wrap this up. I know you guys have been hanging on with me for a while, and I really appreciate that. Let me just scan through a couple more of these notes here to see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about. Oh, the table read stuff. You guys remember the old black and white photo of the whole cast there reading the script for the very first time that like blew up the internet? That was super cool. And of course, Mark Hamill didn't have any lines, so he just read all of like the stage direction or the screenplay directions and the narration of it, which was really funny. Yeah. Oh, this quote that Carrie Fisher had. It's a family experience. Families do Star Wars together. So again, that just goes back to my original thesis for Star Wars being all about relationships and families and friends. Oh, and I'll leave it with this one last thing. Harrison Ford got paid $25 million to do this film, more than anybody else, more than JJ. JJ got paid $5 million. Carrie got paid $1.5 million. The two new leads, Daisy and John, each got paid $460,000, compared to $25 million for Mr. Ford. Woo! Well, he got his character killed off, so I hope the guy's happy. I wonder how much they paid him for that cameo in Rise of Skywalker. That's something I needed to dig up. All right, guys, I had a great time. I like this movie. I'm not as big a fan of TLJ, but we'll get to that next Tuesday because this Saturday I will be doing Rogue One. Remember, I'm doing these in order of release times. So yeah, thanks again for engaging. I'm loving these comments. I read them all, I promise. I'll see some of you Saturday, hopefully. And as always, may the Force be with you.